art not an investment tool. I bought my first artwork. It was Ballet that also impacted choice of people that I work with. I think art taught me to see and art taught me to act. I think art became an inspiration, my inspiration starting very early age. First of all, my family, though none of them were artists, are actually in business of fur making. So I actually sat at a sewing machine when I was 6 years old. At the same age, I started to do ballet. I did ballet for almost 7 years. And I think it gave me some really important points in my life in terms of how I behaved, how I perceived people, and I think most importantly, gave me structure in my life. I knew that every morning I had to do exercise. 3 times a week I went to class. We performed the same moves and the same routine years and years on. That structure actually continued through my whole life. And of course, music. So the background was always music. Everyone in my family played some kind of instrument. My brother played guitar, my father played accordion. And unfortunately, because I was a lefty, I could not find any instrument to play. And when I moved to the United States, I played drums. Actually, that also added a diversity to my form of thinking. Of course, listening to music, performing, working together with a team, as a group, had, I think, very important impact on creative thinking, on structuring, have to remember moves, remember notes. I started drawing and painting, I think I was 6 or 7 as well. Mostly abstract, cannot say that I followed any particular theme, but I think a bit later in the age, I started to love what surrealists brought to the world in terms of their creative thinking, in terms of dreams that became reality in the form of a picture, in the form of sculpture. I started collecting art, I think I was 15 when I bought my first reproduction, actually. Then I think at the age of 17, I bought my first artwork, real artwork. It was Dali from the Bible stories. I bought several of them and they still own them. Later, I bought reproduction, actually not reproduction, but a multiple series of works of Miro. And at that age, and I think up to an age where I started to have real money to be able to collect art, that direction, actually, the surrealist direction, gave that alternative view, I think, on life, as these guys viewed or expressed their dreams, putting them into reality in the form of, as I said, mentioned, in the form of paintings and their artwork. So art, I think, had tremendous impact on my overall view of the world, structure, creative thinking, being able to judge things with an eye. I think this is also very important. So it was not only judging the artwork that I collected or artwork that I liked, but it's also judging people, looking at them from an alternative point of view. And it's definitely had a big impact on the future, on my business, products that I created in my life. And I think what I'm doing now is that gives me an ability to think, as people say, outside of the box. My family was always in business, so they always had to think outside of the box, as you want to say, to help the business grow, to create new things. My mother was a teacher all her life. She actually helped write, or was part of the team that wrote the preschool educational program for all of Soviet Union. And so always, my parents and my family always promoted me, thinking outside of the box, reading different types of books. So I loved to read everything. I read everything from poetry to drama to science fiction. And in the summer, when the kids played outside, I sat inside and read. I don't know how many books I would read during the course of the summer. I know dozens of books. And that also opened my thinking And books and literature is a form of art, it's a form of expression. I had an opportunity to live through, Greek mythology, what happened in Greece, and lived as part of the kid dreaming about, I don't know, the wars of Romans, Greeks, and so on, through the Middle Ages, the mid-centuries, through wars, through love, through affairs. And fortunately for me, my parents never restricted me from reading literature that they never thought that the age really mattered in terms of what I read. It's just my perception, my ability to consume what I'm reading was more important than the text or the theme of the book. I actually started to collect art in the form of art books, even at much earlier age. I think maybe at 7, 8, 9, and started to explore what the art is, maybe in the form of my expression in terms of painting, drawing that I did at the early age. When my family moved to the United States, and as I mentioned, my father was in the fur business. I helped my father do sewing. I helped my father prepare projects for various things that he produced. And at that point, I started to draw fashion. So I started to create women's clothing drawings. First it was drawings, then a fashion line that I created and produced fashion shows, styling. I did the styling with some of top people at that time in the world. People like Steven Meisel, people like the fashion editor, the fashion photographer for New York Times. These people liked me so much, the little young kid, they used to take me to the first line in fashion shows. I would sit with photographers at like major fashion shows. Then later I helped style these fashion shows. So I think that art gave tremendous diversity, and I think that in my lifetime I was able to explore all the different types of art, get involved in all that different types of art. Later in life, when I stopped doing fashion, I was already working on Wall Street. I actually helped support several fashion designers, both in the United States and then moving to Moscow in Russian Federation. Art was always part of my life and still continues to be a big part of my life. I continue to collect art. I continue to look for new ways of expressions, forms of expressions. Since I moved away from New York, my view of art became, I think, much broader. Interestingly enough, it happened in Moscow, where I cannot say that there were not some great surrealists, but at the same time, I started much broader looking at new artists, at new ways of expressions, new styles. And I cannot say that there is one particular style that I like or dislike. I like art. Again, art not as a form of an investment tool, at least in the beginning it was, but later it became sort of a view on somebody's imagination. And if that imagination actually touched me in some way, I bought that art. Later in life, it was not about investing, it was more about surrounding yourself with something that you like, something that you have, that you have next to you and that you can look and enjoy. I think that later in life, that also impacted my choice of people that I work with. It impacted how I chose people that I hired. So I never really hired unless it was something like a very particular job that needed to be executed. If I was hiring a team of people that surrounded me, it was really important to me not just what the person can execute, but who the person is, what they're about, what is their background, what is their outlook on life, what is their perception of the world. That always helped me to make the right choices in terms of human resources. I, rarely failed in my choices in terms of hiring people that later supported me in life. I always took my kids to the museums, plays, to music events, always wanted them to be expressionate, first of all. And my son is a musician. My son runs a record label. My daughter is still questionable in terms of her liking, but I didn't really raise her. You know, she was raised by her mother. And unfortunately, I was not able to impact that at her early age. And it is important, it's very important teaching kids to love art and to be expressionate, and to be multitasking, multi-view on life, on art. It actually instills in you a form of expression, right? So art gives you an ability to be smarter, to be able to talk to your investors, to your partners on a different level, because your mind works much broader. It's the same way as, as you say that, at a very early age, if your child learns more than one language, learns two languages, three languages, it has a very big impact on his future ability to learn anything in life. And if art, it becomes part of that learning process, if you teach your kid to like art, to love books, to love music at an early age, but the age of 6, you have a fully formed individual. So this is something that needs to be instilled at a very early age. I think art taught me to see, and art taught me to act. Finance had a different impact. Finance gave me an ability to surround myself with things that I like, right? But in reality, to say or to be able to weigh one against the other definitely complemented each other.